Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have a very special guest, and I'm so excited to introduce him. He's one of my favorite musicians of all time, and he's a guitar virtuoso. He has worked with so many greats, from Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke, Lenny White, Steve Gadd, Jaco Pastorius, Paco de Lucia, and John McLaughlin, to name a few. And he's been around for about 45 years or so, and he's made so many great albums. And some of those recordings he's been on are No Mystery, Romantic Warrior, Land of the Midnight Sun, Elegant Gypsy, Casino, Friday Night in San Francisco, Opus, and Kiss My Axe. Please welcome to the show, the legendary Mr. Al Di Meola. How are you, sir?
Very good, very good. Considering all the things going on. Life is very different, boy.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, listen, man, thanks so much for being on the show today. And as I said, Al, you've been on the scene for such a long time. You've made such great music, and you're a hero to many. And one of the things that I wanted to do is talk to you about this new venture of yours, A Fine Taste and Music. And I'm so interested in learning about that. Share with us what this is about, man. We're excited.
You know what? We're excited too. My wife and I are just over the moon because it just emerged as just a fluke, really. It was just kind of like it was a Sunday. We were home, and I had a friend or two over outside, social distancing and everything. Mm-hmm. And we have like this table set up outside, and so I said, you know what, I'm gonna go in and I'll do some cooking. I make this pasta dish that's really kind of outrageously good, I must admit. And so as I was starting to prepare it, I said, you know what, Steph? My wife Stephanie, she had the iPhone in her hand. I said, "What? Just go live stream it right now." She goes, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah. Just for the fun of it." And we got a tremendous response. People never expected me, to see me, cooking live in a live stream. So, a few people had mentioned, if they could ever come here. That was after I said, because I was just joking. I just said, and if you want, and you could come here and, we'll charge you. I just made a joke of it. And all of a sudden, people were asking, well, how much? I said, you know what, Steph? This could actually be a concept in that, we can't travel to do shows for quite a while, maybe. But maybe if we limit it to one or two people, nothing more than two, and we have the social distancing thing in effect within the home, maybe what we can do is invite them, of course, for a fee, and part of the proceeds we're, going to go to my charities and stuff like that. But what it does is it just kind of makes our time home, more enjoyable because we have something to do. We have something to look forward to. So it would start out as, where they're viewing my cooking, and then we'd sit down for dinner and have like a 3-course meal, right? And they get to ask me any question they want, and we're just like friends. We're sitting there as friends. To them, it's like a real pleasure because it's something they never dreamed of. Yeah. And then after that, we go down into my studio, and I perform like an intimate, 1-hour performance, sitting down there in the studio for them. And then we would proceed to the next stage, which would be like a lesson, and then maybe a jam. And that would comprise about 4 to 5 hours. And, so it's like an evening but in a different type of setting, that they would ever, get to experience.
Yeah. So Al, would you say the people that would be coming are pretty much young musicians, professional musicians, or even some of your friends are just more like fans?
I would say probably very few young musicians because it's not it's kind of costly in a sense because we didn't want it to be, where we're doing this like every night. So it's kind of a big preparation in terms of what we do, how we present it. We're presenting it kind of like top notch. You know what I mean? And we want to make it exclusive. So therefore, it's not going to be a thing where you see more of the young guys coming in that are on a strict budget or something. So it's more for the professional, that's been following my career for a long time. So, so far we've done a few of them, and the age, more than a few, and the age category has been more in the 50s to 60s.
Interesting. And tell us, man, like I said, I'm surprised about you being a fantastic cook. I think a lot of your fans are. What are some of your special dishes, man? What do you make?
Well, I'm a pasta guy,
Okay.
and in fact, with this the COVID hunkering down thing, I've gained probably 15, 20 pounds, like a lot of my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I make this. I make several pasta dishes, but the one that I really love to make, I start off making is this cavatelli alla di Meola alla Napolitana.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's just the way that it's made is, and the ingredients that I use in this is I think phenomenal, and I think people that have tried it, that I've made it for, are blown away. So, we do. That's one of the number of pasta dishes I make, but that's my favorite one. So, and then we have another course that Stephanie's she's like a master chef, as well. So she'll do the next course, and then we'll have this incredible dessert display after and everything, and a bunch of different wines and everything that we serve. So it's a culinary night that it begins as a culinary cuisine night, and it proceeds to the studio. Yeah. So it's a very unique concept, and I think I may be the first one to ever do it.
Yeah.
And it just, we have to do something, and I was really not inclining to go towards, this streaming lessons online. It was
right.
Too many people are doing it, and
exactly.
It's hard to do a lesson through a screen. I'll do it live, where he could wear a mask if it's a guy, and I'll wear a mask. And that's the way we've been doing it, and it's been working out great. So I'm right there. So I'm actually teaching, but I'm also giving a private performance, which is something that, a diehard fan would really like to see, I think. And then if they want to jam, we can jam too,
So, from the time, I guess, when your guests arrive and they have dinner, and you guys go through the festivities of the evening, what is a usual night? How long does it last? You're talking a couple of hours, 2 to 3 hours?
4 to 5 hours. 4 to 5
okay.
hours. And
wow.
like dinner, the whole dinner process of watching me cook and then the talking part of it, and a tour of the home and the whole 9 yards. And there's a lot to see. This place is like a museum.
Yeah. So
there's a lot to see. And of course, there's a million questions and everything. So you can go through an hour before you even touch the kitchen, you know. And then so that, let's say that's 2.5 hours between arriving and finishing the actual dinner segment of the evening. And then we go to the studio, and that's another 2.5 hours or whatever,
Yeah. Has any of your musician buddies just say, "Hey, John, would you, can I join you, or do you need me?" Have they ever offered to come out, maybe jam with you or spend some time with you amongst?
Well, it's just a great idea, and we have thought of it, and I think in our next presentation that we're putting together right now, either in this one or the next one after that, because we have to change it up a little bit each time, so that when we run the actual advertisement on Facebook and on Instagram, that it has a different look to it, and maybe an addition to it, or something a little different. So I have thought of having guests, like one guest musician as part of a particular package, because we have 3 different packages in this kind of thing, and maybe we present it in the more upper scale package, where if they take that package, so and so will be there for the whole thing, through the whole dinner, and also for the performance part of it. And I have somebody in mind right off bat that I'd like to start with doing that. But that's a really cool thing, to have a guest artist that they're more than likely be aware of, and it kind of we'll just add a little twist to it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I was gonna ask you, you know, because of the COVID-19, of course, musicians are not touring. I had Billy Cobham on a couple of weeks ago, and he says, "Preston, this is not going away, dude. This is with us for the rest of our lives. We got to find a way to, you know, work around it." But during this time period, I'm sure you're always working on music. I've seen some of your videos on Facebook, and you're just strumming along and playing. During the night, you're going to be sharing like brand new music with your guests that maybe no one's ever heard before, or just new stuff that you're working on?
Yeah, like what I did in one of those streams early on back in March and April, I forget which month it was. I was playing some new music that I had written, which I'm doing. I'm writing as well during this time off. Not a lot, but what I'm writing is I've got a lot of time to hone it. So I've done that, and I also debuted something that's coming out next year, which is really a big release in a sense, because the first record that the guitar trio did with Paco de Lucia and John McLaughlin, that's now 40 years old, right? It was released in
79 or 80, I believe. 80, I believe it was, wasn't it?
It was 80. Yeah. So, we're talking about another lifetime ago. And that record was just, it still is talked about so much, and everyone seems to know the record of all the fans, especially in Europe. Oh my God, it was a monster. The thing sold 7 million records. That's 7 million of a live record. I mean, it was and still is as if it were yesterday to a lot of people. They really just adore this record. And it was definitely my biggest and John's biggest and Paco's biggest times a million, So and the popularity of it and all. So anyway, so when we mixed this record back in 1981, I believe, at the beginning of that year, we recorded, I think, in December of 80 by the way, in San Francisco at the Warfield Theater. Okay, Bill Graham, the famous promoter, impresario, he introduced us, which was really honorable, a beautiful moment. And it was his show, of course. So anyway, a lot of people don't know, this is what I was meant to say. A lot of people don't know that this was a 2-night event. It was a Friday night and a Saturday night.
Exactly.
And most people only know of Friday night because the name of the record is Friday Night in San Francisco. So when we went to mix the record in January of 81 in White Plains, New York, believe it or not, they had all of these tapes, so we, they wanted to know, what are we going to do with the rest of the tapes? I said, well, I'll take them. I live right across the river. John was living in Europe. Paco lived in Europe. So I wound up with the whole lot of tapes that comprised of our shows in Germany and France and Belgium and Switzerland. So I have all of these 2-inch reel boxes in my tape vault down in my studio, which is also part of the tour. So people see this and they go, holy, it's like, it is pretty amazing what I've got down there. I have stuff down there that even I don't know that I have it because it's just so extensive. But I knew of the Saturday night in San Francisco. The thing is, we had all of this other material. They're not the same songs.
Right.
So I know I had made some kind of pitch to the guys back in, who knows, it might have been the early 90s or the late 80s, telling them, hey, look, we got all this other material. But for one reason or another, we never got it together. So what I did was I transferred it to ADAT tape. Remember ADAT digital?
I do remember. Yeah.
Okay, and then I just don't know what happened to it. So then a couple of years ago, I did it again, but this time we had to bake the tapes. There's actually a baking process to try to restore the sound in these really old, magnetic tapes. And so there was always that chance that it just might not be happening. It just might be gone or distorted or whatever. So anyway, we baked the tapes professionally. It's not like you can do this at home. So this one studio does that type of restoring, and found that the quality was supreme still. Really great. So then I brought it to the attention, or then I tried to actually see if the record company would be interested in releasing it. You would think they would, right? But that took like a year of trying to get a meeting together and try
Right.
to, and then finally we found the right guys at Sony, because this was originally a Columbia release. So Columbia became Sony. And then I found some real fans that were high up in the company that were very interested in it, thank God. But that was for the States. And then there was Europe. Phonogram had the record in Europe. So we've now made a separate deal for Europe, and Sony is now subbing the record out to a high-end audio label called Impex.
Impex, okay.
Okay, and they're super excited about it. So now, then John got brought into the picture, and we told John what's happening. He was almost, I think, unaware that there was a Saturday night, because it's been so many years.
Yeah.
And he just had no recollection of what was to be. So I sent him, the copies, and he was actually, I think he was like knocked out with it. He was really surprised it was as good as it was. So, and then we brought it to the attention of Paco's family, and they were through the moon excited about the fact that there would be another record. And I remember meeting with Paco's wife when we had this show in Mallorca 2 years ago, and and she was like, "Oh, this is great! So it's the same music, right?" I said, "No. It's all different compositions. In fact, Paco has a composition on this one where he didn't on the first one."
Right.
So she was, "Oh my God, that's phenomenal!" So we're all excited about it. And during this like fine taste in music concept that we have, I got a chance to play a couple of the pieces, just if they were interested to hear it. And I also played it on one of the streams back in April as part of the stream. But that was a freebie,
Yeah. Now, I love some of the work that you also did with the late Larry Coryell. He was another great musician, one of my favorites as well.
Larry was just a wonderful friend. He was my teacher in a way that, he was really inspired me when I was a teenager, because he was really the godfather of fusion.
Yeah.
He was the first guy that I heard, combining elements of country rock and jazz and, classical, just everything, kind of mixing together. So I was this 15, 16-year-old kid going into the city, since the proximity from where I had my house.
Right.
I was living with my parents at the time, was just a bus ride in and a subway down, to the village. And man, just Larry was indulging in a lot of stuff, but I remember, just being blown away and going home very inspired. And then, I think I had asked him for a lesson, and I remember driving out to his farm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and getting this lesson from him. That was pretty interesting. And then through the years, he was always very supportive. He would hear my stuff and was so complimentary about it. And, just the nicest, very intelligent guy, spoke many languages. He was very knowledgeable about the theory, extremely knowledgeable. I always thought Larry should actually not tour so much and actually just teach at a college. That's what I saw with Larry. But, we lost him too soon. And what can I say? I was just glad to have known him. I was very honored to have.
Yeah, I got a chance to spend a little time talking to him. It was actually in a parking lot. It was actually when you guys were in Columbia, Maryland, 2007, when Return to Forever reunited, and Larry's band opened the show. Victor Bailey and those guys. And I told Larry about some footage that I had of pianist Bud Bell. He says, "What?" He says, "Man, I need to come to your house and hang out." But yeah, really good stuff. Now, I wanted to ask you, what was your vision? What were you trying to say on the recording opus? Because last year when I saw you in Washington, D.C., I played that CD to death. You know, I got a free CD when I was there, and I just put it in the car, and I kept playing it, playing. I said, man, I wish I could have asked Al about this, because you signed a couple of my albums, but I wanted to talk to you some more. And I said, man, what is Opus about? I want to know more about that recording, because I loved it, man. I just played it to death over and over and over in the car on the way home. But
Wow.
what is Opus about?
Oh, I think what you're referring to is I made a comment at the record company in a meeting that we had, a roundtable meeting, that was the first record I made when being happy. And they flipped. They said, "Oh, we're going to use that. That's phenomenal." I said, "No. What do you? No, don't use that." You know. So every interview they said, "So what was it like making a record being happy? What was that all about?" And it's really just I would think I was going through a divorce at the time, and I had met somebody. You know, in fact, my wife is from Germany, and it was the first time that I wrote music in the company of my wife being there, and our daughter. We had a baby at the time, and it was just I didn't know prior to that I could ever do something like that, because every time that I wrote for a record, I put myself in isolation.
Yeah.
And usually when I was in isolation, it was pretty scary in a sense that it's nobody around and everything, and it's a little bit like torturous writing, you know. But this was my environment was very uplifting and happy, and I was able to actually write in being happy, you know, which was kind of different, because I was usually in a different state of mind, and many of the other records, that some of them kind of well-known records too. But this time it was funny. I was able to actually do this, and where I do my writing usually is in my place in Miami that I have, which is basically an apartment there on the beach, and I have a room designated for writing. It's really where I go. It's, I open the doors, I can hear the ocean. It's just phenomenal. And then I come back to my house in New Jersey and record in my studio. And it's the way it's kind of been, unless it's something where I need to go in the city for a bigger room, let's say. But yeah, so that was the thing behind that record, was I was in a completely different kind of frame of mind, and in a much better place. So it may have reflected in the music to some degree, and it may have been maybe even deeper in a sense, and maybe that's what you sense. I don't know. I'm too close to it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you. Yeah, I was going to ask you. Of all the work that you've done, because like I said, you've played with countless musicians, great musicians over the years, some of the greatest of all time. And like I said, I definitely put you in that class as one of the greatest of all time. But I was going to, yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you, what type of artist, or who do you listen to when Al Meola is just home relaxing with his wife, glass of wine, and he's not maybe practicing and just taking it easy? What other artists are you listening to, or maybe other guitarists or musicians are you listening to?
Oh God, there's this guy. I forget his name now. Well, there's a couple of Italian guys that are pretty mind-blowing. Giuseppe Constanzienza is one of them. He plays with Burley Legrin.
Oh yeah, I know Burley. Yeah, Jocko used to play
Burley's a monster. In fact, Burley, myself, and Larry had a trio together.
Oh wow, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was going back a bit, quite a lot, maybe 30 years ago. But that was like the second guitar trio after the other one,
Right.
So, and then there's another guy, Matteo Mancuso, out of Sicily, who's beyond, just it's beyond anything that I can imagine. Beautiful, just an incredible. I don't know how he got there. It's kind of like when Jocko hit the scene. It's like, how did he get so good so young? Okay,
right.
And that's what this guy Matteo's got. And then there's another guy out of France that is just on the same kind of advanced level as Matteo Mancuso. I forget his name now. Anyway, just know that there's another guy out of France, and it's just this young generation coming up that you can discover, of course, online.
Mm-hmm.
They're just popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
And even pianists, like there's just like 20
Yeah.
of them now that are like, holy Jesus,
I know.
that will give Chick and all of those guys a run for their money.
Oh yeah.
The only difference is they've not yet established themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they've not yet become composers. You know what I mean?
That's the key. That you just hit on
That's the
something very
key.
important.
That's the key. So they're up there, and when you see these videos, they're showing off their stuff, whether it's this
Right.
or whether it's that, and it's mind blowing. But it's not applied to anything.
Right.
Not yet. It will be, but they've got they got a lot of room that they're going to grow within. With that amazing technique, amazing depth, that they might have in their playing. Now they have to apply it and become composers. Otherwise, they're going to be playing in other people's music, and
Mm-hmm.
you can only go so far if all you have is technique and a lot of knowledge on the instrument.
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to have then a very narrow audience, in my opinion, and which is going to be more, centered around people that are really into that specific instrument. But once you broaden your scope and you find that you have the ability to become a composer, well, then it becomes much greater and with.
Yeah. You made me think about something. One of my favorite recordings of you, your early recordings, was Land of the Midnight Sun. And you just mentioned Jaco Pastorius earlier. Boy, what a talent. And I was talking to Pat Metheny about him, and Pat's like, everyone talks about Jaco, with Weather Report. He said he was way better before he got with Weather Report. He said like the early 70s when I met him, he said it was just unbelievable. But what was it like working with him on Land of the Midnight Sun?
Well, I knew of Jaco when I was in high school because we used to, on spring break, we go down to, of course, Fort Lauderdale. That was
Right.
the place.
That was a place.
So I think I heard about Jaco before most of the music community, except for Pat, because Pat was in, he was at the University of Miami, I believe. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
he knew of the rumors going around about Jaco, maybe at the same time or before me. But I had gone down in high school, and so maybe I knew about him even before Pat, now that I think about it. And then how did I meet him? I don't know. I met him on one of those trips down there. And then I invited him to play on my first album. And his father told me, or Jaco told me, I don't know, that were both of them, they told me this is the first opportunity he ever had to record in the studio.
Wow.
So it was a track with Barry Miles on keyboards and Alphonse Mazan on drums and Mingo Lewis on percussion. And Jaco, I had a chart for Jaco. He loved it. And then I remember distinctly, we loved playing it. It was we recorded at Electric Ladyland, in Studio B, the back room. I'll never forget that. And it was a suite called Sweet Golden Dawn, and he did his signature that riff that you hear in a lot of songs. That funky riff, and it was everybody loved it. We were tickled. So session ends, and he says, "Okay, now I'm going up to Boston." I said, "Oh yeah, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm playing on Pat Metheny's record." So that was the first record he did with Pat. Right after that,
Right Size Life. Yeah.
But I remember meeting his father a couple of times. He says, that was the first time Jaco was ever recorded in a studio. I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool." So I then had mentioned to Bobby Colomby, who was the drummer, and he was the one who put the group together, Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for a bass player. So I had mentioned, I said, there's this amazing guy, Jaco, you got to check him out. And he wound up hiring him. And then after that, he got a gig at Epic which is the subsidiary of Columbia Records.
Yeah.
And they wanted to sign Jaco, and that's when they recorded Jaco. They recorded Jaco in Bobby Columbia's bedroom up in New City, New York, which is very close to where I am right now.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible.
The rest is history. I mean, and then I got to say, this is amazing because Elegant Gypsy, my most famous record,
I love
and
that.
Heavy Weather, classic beyond belief, right? They came out the same week on Columbia. So the president of the company said, look, we would like you guys to tour together across America.
Wow.
And we're going to promote the shit out of these records. And I said, oh man, this is phenomenal. So we did like something like 30 something dates.
Really? Was anything
as a
ever
co-bill,
filmed? Was anything ever filmed, Al?
That's a good question. There's things popping up all the time on YouTube. But I remember packed, every seat sold, 2,000 to 3,000 seaters, all across America. And every night I was hanging out with Joe Zawinul or Jaco, and so I have really fond memories. And Jaco was in good shape and good form that first run. He became a superstar, and it maybe all the bad stuff kind of emerged, and was offered to him and whatever, and he unfortunately succumbed to it. But it was mind blowing. We would watch them every night. They would watch us every night, and it was just a magic time.
It was, man.
The beginning, the pioneering years of fusion was an absolutely magical time, and I was just so happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, Al, it's funny you mentioned that. Chick had told a story. I think he took Stanley somewhere to see the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and they just looked at each other and it blew their minds. But just
that's what inspired him to go electric.
Yeah. And when you came into the band, I think it really took off because what Bill Connors was in there before, and then you came in. But those two records that you did, the No Mystery and Romantic Warrior. Oh, and my favorite is No Mystery.
Well, it's 3. There's Where Have I Known You Before?
Oh, that's right. But your guitar work.
So the first one was Where Have I Known You? I was 19 years old.
Wow.
Our first show was July, I think 2nd or 3rd at Carnegie Hall. That was I remember I was at Berklee School of Music, and Chick calls me up. Well, first I should go back a little bit before that. So a month before that, they were playing at the Orpheum Theater, and they were in between guitar players. Bill left the band,
right,
or something happened, and I'll never know why. And then I went to see my favorite group, was Return to Forever. I went to see them at the Orpheum in Boston with my friends in school, and Earl Klug was playing with them.
What?
Earl Klug with a Les Paul.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Earl Klug, and I'm going, now I knew of Earl Klug, I like Earl Klug, and I saw him with a Les Paul, and I remember he had this white beanie, like with the ball on top of a hat, he had a Playboy shirt on. I'll never forget that image, and I went, this, I like Earl, but this is not his bag. So I remember calling a friend. My friend Michael is like my big brother, and telling him about it. He was back in New Jersey, and I told him of this. I said, man, Michael, I love this band. I can't believe it. I saw them with Bill Connors. It was great, and then I saw them with Earl, and I thought Earl was kind of out of his element. Right. So they were really looking for somebody else. So Michael somehow took it upon himself to go into New York and try to meet Chick and find the management. And he did. He was an amateur recording engineer, and he had a tape of me playing with Barry Miles. And he must have bugged them to no end to hear this tape. And that's how it happened. They heard the tape. They loved it. And so Chick calls me up personally. I was in my apartment with my girlfriend at the time, and right in the Back Bay area, right behind the school. And, I pick up the phone. Hi, is this Al? I said, yeah, who's this? It's Chick Corea. I said, yeah, sure, it's Chick Corea. No, this is Chick Corea, man. Your friend Mike played a tape for me, and man, we love what you do. And I said, holy Jesus, really, Chick Corea? That's Chick's voice. I said, he goes, look, can you come to the short end of the story is, you think you can come to New York and join the band? I said, join the band. I said, wow, I mean, you're going to have rehearsals? Or, you know, so I went down. I remember I showed up. First, I told my girlfriend I'm leaving. She goes, wait, are you going to the store? I said, no, I'm leaving.
Oh,
That's it.
wow.
It's over. I mean, I you know, I had to go. She goes, where you going? I'm going on tour, Return to Forever. So
Oh,
I,
wow.
I remember going home. My parents, I go to the house and I knock on the screen door. My mother comes to the door. She goes, what are you doing home from school? I said, I'm playing at Carnegie Hall on Tuesday night. And my father was at the table with the newspaper, you know, and the key. No, you're not. Who are you kidding? You're not, you're not playing. Dad, I'm playing Carnegie Hall on Tuesday. He goes, how are you playing Carnegie? It's impossible. You're in music school. You know, I said, yeah, well, it worked.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had 2 or 3 days rehearsal, these monster charts, and man,
And
we did it.
I was just going to ask you real quick about that. I mean, what was your perception of Chick and that music? I mean, was it like complicated? Were you looking at this like, wow, man, this is like
Yeah,
probably some of the toughest stuff I've ever played, you know?
yeah. Well, sure it was. I mean, when we did the reunion, I didn't think that because I think I had grown. I had, you know, over 30 years or whatever, you
Right.
know. So it was a kind of a piece of cake when I went back to it, and it was fun. It was nostalgic and everything when we did the reunion tours. But
Mm.
then it was man, it was cutting edge.
Yeah.
It was the new shit, man. It was
Yeah.
happening. It was that band was like we were ready to cross over into arenas. I
Yeah.
mean, it was that kind of, you know, we could have had 10, 20,000 people a night had we continued. So yeah, that's a whole other discussion because we really ended too soon. We were right at that cusp
I
of
know.
crossing over into Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Yeah. Romantic Warrior. And then boom, that was it. Yeah.
It was explosive, and we had the full support of the record company, amazing budgets. We just, I will say it, and you know, I'm sorry if Chick disagrees, but had we stayed together and made, let's say, another 5 more records like Romantic Warrior, you know, progressively,
Oh, yeah.
that would have sealed you know, everything, you know.
You know,
And
you
we definitely ended too soon, and it was not a good decision. The Chick just handed the contract back to CBS. It was not a good idea.
unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. But, you know, the rest
Yeah.
is history, like you said. And I noticed over the years you've played, especially in some of those early albums, you love drummer Steve Gadd. You played with him a lot. What's it
Oh,
like playing with Steve, man?
it was a very, you know, I made some good decisions. You know, I think I had the totally right uh, rhythm section of Steve and Anthony
Anthony
Jackson.
Jackson, too. Yeah.
And that the sound of that, when I go back and I listen to those records, it was really the best combo that I could think of. Um, and I really was right in thinking to not form my own band of unknowns who
Yeah.
don't have studio experience, don't have, you know, part of studio experience is just knowing how to tune your instruments, getting the right tone out of the drums, you know, getting the right bass sound. And boy, those 2 guys had the best, you know, the best sound and also ability. I mean,
Mm.
Steve, my God, Steve at his best, you know. Steve, people should just go back to even the first record and
Yeah.
listen to a song called "The Wizard" and listen to Steve's solo in that. I don't know if Steve can do that now, you know.
Mm.
But and Anthony Jackson, who is just, you know, revered by all bass players, loved by all, you know, kind of introverted guy, but he doesn't realize that bass sound that he had, which was a Fender Precision with a flanger, was his signature sound.
Yeah.
And then he went to this like 6-string bass where every note is the size of a house. And it's really hard to hear separation. Well, he plays like a genius, of course.
Mm.
And he plays with a pick. And I wanted a guy that plays with a pick. And I wanted to hear every bass line very clearly that I had written. So I really gravitated towards that kind of bass player that had the picking thing, because the articulation is
Right.
far greater than if you play with the fingers. That's just the way it is, you know, unless you're Jaco Pastorius or something, you know. but but his articulation was like a guitar player, you know, because he played with a pick. And then he had that sound that was, you could hear every note and every line super clear because it was a Fender Precision with a flanger.
Yeah.
And I could never get him to go back to that. But we did four, no, we did more. We did more like 6 or 7 records together, minimum, maybe even more. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I'm curious about, and I just brought up earlier the COVID-19, people are quarantined and not able to do much. What is a normal day? What is a normal day like now for Al Di Meola? You know, from the time that you get up, the time that you go to bed, are you constantly working on music? Or one of the things that I've also noticed is that I see, I'm on Facebook, and I mean, you look so happy, man. You know, your wife and your little girl. It's just beautiful and precious to see that. And I said, man, this guy looks so happy, you know, with his little girl. But what is a normal day like for you now? You know, from the time that you get up and the time.
Well, I get up later than them. I do. You know, my little one, she's 4.5 now. Ava's an amazing child and is getting the benefit of both parents being here all the time.
Right.
So she's a very happy child. There's not a lot of goodbyes, you know, like when I'm touring.
Right.
And I'm really happy about that there's a lot of stability in this daughter's life where I had, you know, I have 2 older daughters, you know, from previous relationships and, you know, they had to endure the father being away a lot because, you know, we're musicians and that's what we do. But this is a different experience, and I could see the difference in how she's developing. You know, she also has an incredible mother. You know, Ava's mother, Stephanie, my wife, is like super.
You're blessed, my friend. You're blessed.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Stephanie grew up in East Germany, so it's a whole other upbringing she had with wonderful parents, like. So it's you know, there's a silver lining in this whole period of life. This, you know, and on one hand, it's been incredible to be home. I have never been in this house, and I've had the house since 1978, and I don't think I've spent this much time in the house in a stretch. No, so I've gotten to become more intimate with taking care of certain things, and realizing just how fortunate I am to have the space here. And now we're utilizing it for this concept to find taste in music. And it's like the house is giving back, you know. So it's been great, you know.
Fantastic.
So on the other hand, I'm also watching TV like a nut, and realizing that this is really an awful period in our history that is scary beyond belief. And I've had tours now, 3 tours that have been moved from the spring of this year, because that was the beginning of this whole horrible thing. Right. And it was moved to September, October, November, right? It's been moved. Now, the other day it was moved, I think 2 weeks ago, it was moved to March, April. Yeah. That's been moved. That's been moved to July, August. So there is no gigs at all until the summer of next year, if we're lucky. If we're lucky, because we're not getting a handle on this, and without getting political, you know, it was not handled well. And, you know, we're suffering the consequence of leadership that wasn't good, you know, as compared to Europe, who had really good leadership. And, you know, I talked to friends, musician friends that are in Italy, and how well they're doing now. They went through hell in that lockdown, and really bad, but they stuck with it, you know, and Germany too, there's phenomenal leadership, and people are kind of more so back, let's say, not 100%, you know, but we're in the thick of the hell at the moment.
We definitely are.
And we shouldn't have been. We could have had almost a normal summer had we done the right thing. And that's, you know. Who disagrees with that? You know?
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk. It's been a pleasure. Love you, man. I love your music, and just thank you
so much.
for the gift of it that you've been giving for so long. Hang on, I'm about to close out the show. Well, you've heard it from the great Al Di Meola, and as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.
Pleasure, man. A lot of fun.